No, not until we get to heaven. I think it's getting further apart. But I will say this. I do see citywide evangelism coming. And it's interesting. Whatever your view of the gifts are, they come back in the tribulation. Because the 144,000 have the genuine gift of tongues. They're speaking. I'm talking about the gift of tongues in the Bible was speaking a language you never learned. A real language that people understood from that country. And those, in Acts chapter 2, you find them speaking the languages of 21 different nationalities of people. And they were Jews that grew up and lived their whole life in Jerusalem. And all of a sudden, they could speak Elamite. They could speak the language of the Parthians. They could speak all these languages from the world. The 144,000 Jewish evangelists who are ministering around the world during the tribulation speak to every kindred, tongue, tribe, and nation. They can speak any language in the world. That's a genuine gift of languages. So I think there's going to be citywide evangelism then. But what about, as in the Franklin Graham thing that we recently had? We spent a long time talking and praying about that for Tulsa. And what we've seen is, and I'm not commenting at all on Franklin Graham, but I'm commenting on Christendom today. It used to be that a godly man moved into a town and started preaching. Moody would go to London. And he would go to one church, and that church would be they would have meetings every night, and they would have all day long, anybody come, and they'd open their doors, and they would preach and preach and preach. And all of a sudden, it would spill out into other churches, and then pretty soon, he would be invited to find the largest place, and it was not a business. Evangelism is a business now. Huge business. To bring an evangelist in, as you saw with the festival here, we're talking about hundreds of thousands and more. And then it has to become a show. You got to put up, 50-foot high speakers because the young people won't come if they can't be vibrated, And then, you've got, you know what I mean? And it just becomes a show. And after a while, in order to make everybody come, you offend everybody. And so you have to decide, are you going to just not believe, not have any, whatever, and just put them all down and come to it? Or modern day citywide evangelism also isn't, what we do nowadays isn't biblical. It was Paul going first always to the synagogue, where the Bible-learned people were, and he started working. And then people got saved, and the word got out, and so it got wider and wider, and finally he'd go out into the public marketplace. And then there would be huge crowds, and either they'd string him up and beat him up and throw him out, or he'd stay for 3 years like he did in Ephesus and turn the whole place upside down. Nowadays, I think because of Finney, Charles Grandison Finney, he mechanized evangelism. He said if you do this and this and this long enough, you will have a revival. And people have bought into that. And I don't think that we need to call in a big gun. I just think if all the Christians got serious, if every person in Tulsa Bible Church began to live a holy life with no secret leaven in their life, in the Word, and had a godly family setting in their home, and then started learning how to fast and pray, we would not have enough room for all the new believers, not for all the church-hopping people that are checking out the church. I'm talking about for what we would influence in our lives. So I don't think we need to mechanize a thing. What we need is, instead of paying someone to come in and do it, we need all of us individually to decide what we want to answer to the Lord for when we stand before Him not too long from now. And if we really get serious about it, we'd clean up our lives, we'd start learning how to fast and pray, we would start learning how to worship so much that we come in here hot, full of the Spirit of God, and we come in with such radiant worship that the unbelievers would take note. And they'd say, God is in that place. And so I think it's going to get more and more complicated to have citywide crusades. More and more complicated. Billy Graham was unique. I think he's one of the most unique men in the history of the planet for the gospel. He preached in 47, and my parents were deeply moved. And he hasn't changed what he says a bit. That's rare. He hasn't accommodated to the culture, to the winds of everybody's.